Kiyoshi Kurosawa is quickly becoming one of my favorite directors. He is a Japanese filmmaker most well known for his work in the psychological horror genre with films like Cure and Pulse. Those are the two films of his I started with, but have since begun to further explore his filmography. I love the ambiguous nature of his films. They are mysterious and require the viewer to think and reflect on their themes. He is a master at creating atmosphere. His films feel creepy, eerie, distressing, and perplexing. His films are slower, often comprised of longer, extended takes, but this creates a hypnotic quality that pulls the viewer into the film. Today, I want to discuss and explore one of his lesser-known works. The film stars Kurosawa regular Koji Yakusho. He plays a detective named Yoshioka who is investigating a series of murders which point to the possibility of a serial killer at work. While investigating, one of the victims, a woman in a scarlet dress, appears as a ghost and begins to haunt him. As he continues the case, the evidence begins to point to Yoshioka as the killer, which causes him to question his identity and sanity. I'm talking about the 2006 horror mystery film, Retribution. Let's dive in. The word retribution is defined as repayment given or inflicted for sin or evil committed, a distribution of punishments in a future life. The film opens and we witness a woman in a red jacket being murdered by an unidentified assailant and is being drowned in a small saltwater puddle in the middle of a road. Police arrive the next morning and they discover that the crime scene has been disturbed due to an earthquake that occurred the night before. The tire tracks and footprints that should be present on the muddy road are now gone. While examining the scene, our lead character, Detective Yoshioka, who I'm now going to simplify and refer to as Yoshi, he notices a foreign object in one of the puddles, a button. At home that night, he examines one of his trench coats and sees that it is missing a button. Is this just a coincidence, or is this evidence of Yoshi as the killer? He then returns to the scene of the crime that night to retrieve the button, and we get our first sighting of the Scarlet Ghost. Yoshi retrieves the button, brings it back to the police station, and submits it as evidence. Throughout the film, Yoshi has a woman who frequents his apartment. Her name is Haru. This is important to note for later on in the film. Shortly after, the coroner discovers unidentified fingerprints on the victim's body, and when they run the prints through the system, they come back as a match for Detective Yoshi. Not being too concerned, and assuming it was accidental, they ask him if he accidentally touched the body without gloves on again, telling us that this has happened before. At this point, we are only 13 minutes into the movie, and it has already implied twice that our lead detective is the unidentified killer. Now, if you're like me though, you're probably thinking, this seems too easy, and is too quick of a reveal. But let's see what happens. The film then jumps to a new location and introduces us to a new character, a doctor at a hospital who is an anesthesiologist. His son visits him, and we find out the son is deep in gambling debts to a fellow student. He asks his dad to provide a bunch of used syringes which he can use to pay his debts. Later on that night, in an unexpected and shocking moment, instead of helping his son, the father injects him with a paralyzing agent and drowns his son in a puddle of salt water, killing him in the same way the Scarlet Woman was killed. The police put out an APB for the father as the main suspect and believe him to also be the killer of the Scarlet Woman. More evidence is uncovered, and Detective Yoshi is told from the coroner that traces of a yellow paint-like substance was discovered on the wrist of the Scarlet Woman. And then things get more complicated when we see Detective Yoshi in his living room, looking up and seeing some yellow electrical cords sticking out of his wall, giving us yet another hint that Yoshi is the killer. But what about the doctor who just killed his son? killing him with the same MO as the Scarlet Woman. The mystery is now becoming more complex and thus more engaging. Detective Yoshi tracks down the doctor, and in an attempt to escape justice, he jumps off a building. This scene here is a small example of why I believe Kurosawa's directing style is so effective. Notice the way he films the scene. No edits, no fakery. There are moments like this in Retribution and his other movies that are filmed so straightforward and realistically, we can easily forget we're watching a movie. The doctor survives the fall, and Yoshi arrests him and believes he is setting him up and framing him for the murders. The police bring him in for interrogation and questioning, and the man starts having a mental break, behaving like his son's ghost is haunting him and trying to attack him. We can now draw a connection between the murder victims and their ghosts. The doctor murdered his son and is being haunted by his ghost, and Yoshi is being haunted by the Scarlet Woman. Does this mean he killed her? If so, then how do we explain these two separate murders being carried out in the same exact way? This is no longer just a straightforward serial killer murder mystery. There is something supernatural at play. And it's this combination that, to me, makes Retribution feel somewhat like a mixture of both Cure and Pulse. Cure is more of the murder mystery, and Pulse is the supernatural ghost story. And here we have those genres coming together in a unique and compelling way. Next, we get one of the highlight scenes in the film. Detective Yoshi is at home. The lights are off, the mood is creepy. We suspect the Scarlet Ghost to make an appearance. Notice how Kurosawa shoots this scene. I love how effectively he uses the mirror here. What Kurasawa does is he throws in a diversion. An earthquake hits and rattles Yoshi's home. After a few seconds, it subsides, and we take a breath and let our guard down. And in using the earthquake as a distraction, it's what makes this moment so effective. It's a great moment that got a genuine jump out of me. It's an effectively executed jump scare because it's truly surprising and it subverts our expectations. In this scene, the Scarlet Ghost says that she knows who Yoshi is, but he says he doesn't know her. Is he lying? Mistaken? Or could he be telling the truth? And if he is being truthful, why is he being haunted by this woman? Yoshi's psyche is beginning to fracture, and we next see him at an appointment with a therapist. The therapist shares with him a story regarding one of his other patients who is also being haunted, and he suggests that the ghost is perhaps the voice of truth, trying to reveal some repressed memory. And these are the types of scenes in Kurosawa's films that elevate them above surface-level mysteries or ghost stories. This is when we see the film is truly about something. The ghost is trying to communicate a truth to Yoshi, trying to help him learn something, and the same is true with Kurosawa and the audience. What is he trying to tell us? What do we need to learn? For a second time, the film jumps to a new location and introduces us to new characters. Here, we see a young man and woman who are having an affair. The man tells her he's going to leave his wife. Later on that day, we see the woman filling up jugs of water in the ocean, more salt water. The couple meets up that day after work. She attacks him unprovoked, hitting him in the head with a glass bottle, and then drowns him in the bathtub that she filled up with the jugs of salt water she collected earlier in the day. And after the murder, the Scarlet Ghost appears to the woman in a reflection in a mirror. From here on out, I'm simply going to recount the final events of the film. Then at the end, I'll recap and give you my interpretation to the mystery. The film now reaches a significant moment, as throughout the film up till this point, Yoshi has had a couple flashbacks trying to recall a memory from years earlier. About 15 years ago, he would take a ferry to work. And on the ferry route, he remembered seeing a black building. He goes to the Public Records building to investigate and discovers it was a mental institution. The man helping him recalls a rumor he remembers hearing about the institution. Anytime one of the inmates disobeyed a rule, they would be suffocated in a basin filled with salt water. The police then get another break in the case, as the Scarlet Woman is identified as a woman named Riko. Yoshi and his partner go and visit Riko's mother, and one of Riko's old high school boyfriends shows up. When they go to question him, he runs. So they bring him in as a witness. The following scene, we learn the young man confesses. The police find a coat of his that was missing a button, and they also find a yellow cord in his truck. And here's where we get another significant reveal. It turns out that the Scarlet Ghost that's haunting Yoshi is not Riko. The Scarlet Ghost was an inmate at the mental institution that Detective Yoshi used to pass by on the ferry many years earlier. We also learn that the other killers rode the same ferry. Shortly after this, Detective Yoshi coincidentally runs into the female killer who drowned her boyfriend in the bathtub. She says to him she has also been haunted by the Scarlet Ghost, and told her that she was someone who has been forgotten, that nobody remembered her. Then, inexplicably, Detective Yoshi seems to be possessed and attempts to drown the woman in a puddle of water, but he quickly stops himself and tells her to run away and escape. Yoshi then decides to finally confront the past to get answers. He visits the abandoned sanitarium and is once again visited by the Scarlet Ghost. She tells him that she forgives him, and then appears as a pile of bones on the floor. There is a trail of salt water leading to the bones. Back at his apartment, Yoshi is with the woman I referenced earlier, Haru, and we discover that Haru is a ghost. Not only is she a ghost, but she's also a victim, killed at the hands of Detective Yoshi, and her body still lies dead in his apartment. After this, Detective Yoshi leaves his apartment, and his partner shows up and begins snooping around. He has had his suspicions of Yoshi throughout the film and never thought he was completely innocent. He enters the room where Haru's body was, but instead he finds a pot of salt water in the middle of the floor. He leans over to look inside, and then the film concludes with Detective Yoshi back at the institution. He is collecting the bones, and this time is visited not by the Scarlet Ghost, but by her red dress, and her words in voiceover are whispered. This line repeats over and over, and the final shot we see Yoshi carrying a bag of the Scarlet Woman's bones back to the police station. So what does this all mean? How were there multiple killers all with the same MO? What is the voice of truth? And what is Kurosawa trying to tell us in this story? The 4 killers in the film all shared something in common. They were commuters on the ferry boat from years earlier, and every day that boat would pass an abandoned sanitarium where people were held and forgotten about. Only they knew the people were there, and they did and said nothing about it. And their ghosts haunted these 4, causing them to commit murders as a way of trying to get people to remember them. All 4 of these killers were at points in their lives where they wanted to wipe everything out and forget it all, to erase parts of their lives, forgetting their mistakes, and start over again. The ghosts in this film could be called the ghosts of neglect. They were people who society collectively forgot about. Let's revisit a few key moments as there are a handful of lines delivered throughout the film that speak to the truth Kurosawa is trying to reveal to us. The first scene involves Yoshi taking a boat ride to the abandoned sanitarium, and the boat captain says this. The next 3 moments are all lines of dialogue delivered by Detective Yoshi. This film is an exploration into repressed memories. It's about how we choose to forget things. We lie to ourselves to avoid responsibility. We do this individually and collectively as a society. How often do we see people in society who are hurting and need help, and we just continue on our way? We choose to ignore them. These are the ghosts of society who have been neglected, crying out to be remembered. People often walk in fear that their past will be discovered, that they will be reminded of something they've chosen to forget. We fear that our sins will be discovered. We are masters at lying to ourselves. Do we really forget, or do we just simply choose to forget? The abandoned sanitarium building is still there, but the entire city has forgotten about it. They glossed over the tragedy that occurred. How much do we avoid collectively? And how much responsibility should we all bear for these types of occurrences? Detective Yoshi, for many years, genuinely didn't remember, and so throughout the film, he can't understand how he can be responsible for something he can't remember. I think the point is made in the scene where he confronts the female killer and unexpectedly tries to drown her. It's almost like his repressed memories have a mind of their own, and they are doing things that he doesn't remember, and therefore he feels like he didn't actually do them. There is an interesting contrast in the film. The Scarlet Ghost is trying to get Yoshi to remember, while Haru, also a ghost, is trying to get him to forget. Using the excuses that we tell ourselves, the past is an illusion. If it's in the past, what does it matter? Some ghosts try to get us to remember. They are the voice of truth. And some ghosts try to get us to forget. They are the voice of lies. We can choose which to believe and which to follow. As Yoshi says, I can no longer pretend not to see what's right in front of me. The final line is where I believe the film gets its title. It is a cry for retribution from those whose society has neglected and forgotten about. The ghosts want retaliation against the land of the living. However, I do think the film ends on a more positive note. Yoshi is actually forgiven by the Scarlet Ghost and is allowed to live, perhaps because he is the one person who chooses to take some responsibility and chooses to remember. As the final shot shows him with the bones entering the police station, doing the right thing, doing what needs to be done so the Scarlet Woman will be remembered. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully, maybe I introduced you to a new film. I highly encourage you to check out more of Kurosawa's filmography. Please hit me up down in the comments below, and also let me know your thoughts on this film if you've seen it. If you got anything out of this video, go ahead and do me a favor and do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard.